Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to give us one more minute and then we'll get started. All right, well, welcome. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Eli Levine. I have the easiest job in the world today. I really get to turn this over to my colleague, Bruce Lung. We're excited to have you here today. This is the sixth and final installment of our Energy Awareness Month webinar series entitled Trailblazers and Goal Achievers, How Better Plans Partners Achieved Ambitious Energy Goals. So we're thrilled to have you here. We're going to be posting recordings of all of the webinars that we've done so far and sending them out to you. So if you missed one of them and would like to go back, we should be able to send them out shortly. But I hope everyone is doing well today, and I will turn this over to Bruce Lung or Robert Lung. You can call him both. He gets offended by neither. Has supported industrial energy efficiency for many, many years. He's been with the Department of Energy in our Advanced Manufacturing Office for the last 6 years, I believe. And before that had worked on his own consulting firm at the Alliance to Save Energy and several other organizations. So we are thrilled to have his expertise and commitment to this issue. And it was great to see him take the lead in putting this document together. And I will turn this over to Bruce to take it from here. Thanks so much, Bruce.
Well, thanks a lot, Eli, and thanks everyone for joining. Now, thank you all ahead of time for staying to the end of this presentation. First, I'll go ahead and display the Zoom recording announcement. So if you don't want to be recorded, please disconnect now or don't speak during the call, and then we'll go from there. Today, I wanted to just give you a quick agenda of what we're going to talk about. I'll go over briefly what the Better Plants program is and our newest program, the Better Climate Challenge, but also talk about how we came to this particular research effort and the paper that we developed that is available on our website, and also talk about how the goal achievers that were partners in the Better Plants program met the goal, the kinds of resources that they leveraged, and the common approaches and steps that other industrial organizations can take. One of the reasons that we wanted to do this research was to show not only how partners meet the goal, but to provide insights for new and prospective partners. One of the questions that we've gotten over the year is that the 25% program goal is very ambitious and seems almost like a very big hill to climb, and so some companies have kind of shied away from joining the program because they didn't think they could achieve the goal. And I think what you'll find in this presentation and in the white paper is that the goal is actually quite achievable, often without a lot of capital expenditures. And I'll get into that as well. So basically, I think some of y'all are already familiar with Better Plants. It started out as a program, a voluntary program, just focused on energy productivity. And over the years, in response to a lot of our partners' requests, we've expanded to other sustainability areas, including water efficiency, waste reduction, and now more recently, carbon reduction, emissions reductions. And I'll discuss a little bit about these as well. Basically, the Better Climate Challenge is our newest program. And what we're offering, in addition to the commitment to improve carbon reductions by at least 15% in 10 years, is all the technical assistance that you would get in the Better Plants program, as well as additional technical resources that we're developing that are specifically related to carbon reductions. This would also include additional recognition opportunities, peer networking, working groups, and other opportunities to get access to new technologies that are being developed, particularly through our national laboratories. So we encourage you, if you're not a program partner yet, to join the Better Climate Challenge. You'll get a twofer. Basically, you'll be functionally a Better Plants partner. If you're already in Better Plants and you have a carbon goal, an ambitious carbon goal, you can easily transition over to the Better Climate Challenge, and you'll still receive everything you get right now in the Better Plants program. There's a couple, or three, I should say, three areas related to the new program. Number one, transparency and accountability. We will help you understand how your renewable energy efforts, your energy efficiency efforts, and other efforts to reduce carbon can be counted, baselined, and displayed in reporting frameworks that a lot of companies are working towards. This can be broken down by energy efficiency measures, by renewable technologies, and even renewable energy certificates. More importantly, we're also going to provide technical assistance. We will help you understand the data that goes into the scope 1 and 2 emissions. We'll help you identify resources, including trainings and new technologies that can help you make big step changes in carbon reductions, and also expose you to R&D that may help you down the road, as this is going to be a 10-year effort. There's going to be new technologies that are going to come online. Also, we're going to work with you on demonstrating the pathways to achieve deep decarbonization in manufacturing. So this will be everything from working with case studies, doing working groups, other peer-based activities, updates from DOE officials and program staffs. Basically, we're going to be with you the whole step of the way. So if you're interested, please let us know, and we'll definitely get you connected. And so now let me move on to the meat of our presentation here on the Trailblazers. What we have here are the typical steps that we understand partners take as they get on their journey within Better Plants to meet Better Plants program goal. I'm not going to read off every particular step, but basically it starts with a big welcome. There's also the assignment of a technical account manager, which is basically like having a free consulting engineer who can help you throughout the period of the partnership. The TAMs will work with you to set up a baseline and understand the right metrics for understanding energy intensity. If you already have these, that's great. We're not going to reinvent the wheel. We can just drive on from there. And then the TAM is going to help you prioritize your efforts. Everything from doing a quick energy review to understanding where energy goes in your plants. The TAMs will help you focus your efforts and your attention to the areas that can achieve the biggest bang for the buck in terms of energy efficiency. They'll do this by offering the different resources that we use, everything from the software platforms, the diagnostic equipment, the implant trainings, the technology validation, as well as other resources that are available through the Advanced Manufacturing Office of DOE. And this would include things like 50001 Ready, or programs based on ISO 50001, the industrial assessment centers, as well as combined heat and power and waste heat recovery. And they're not going to stop there. They're also going to let you know about external resources like the REOPT tool that is produced by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. So really, it's an ensemble of resources that the TAM will be able to provide for you. Then, as the partner gets all these resources and implements energy efficiency projects in coordination with the TAM, they'll start to see the energy savings, and they'll also be able to leverage additional resources like our technology days, the annual Better Plants, Better Building Summit, and the Field Validation Initiative. And finally, when the partner meets the goal, they'll be recognized using all the DOE's recognition resources and communications resources. So in a kind of a snapshot kind of way, this is what we envision the typical pathway for a lot of our partners to take. And so what we started to do was to undertake this research as of 2019. And at that time, we had about 221 partners. And as we tallied up all the goal achievers, we found there were 56 separate organizations that had achieved 63, achieved the goal 63 times, which meant that some companies had actually met the goal once, repledged and doubled down and met it again within the 10 years that the program had been around. At that time, there was also about $6.7 billion in cumulative energy cost savings and about 1.3 quadrillion BTUs that had been saved by these goal achievers. One of the things we found as we started breaking down the data is that a lot of the companies that have met the goal were pretty large. We're looking at companies with more than 500 employees, about at least 20 to 25 plants, and then also more than $100 million in annual sales. We did find that there was a good representation from what we consider smaller and medium-sized companies, but by far the larger companies tended to be most of the goal achievers. And as we looked a little closer at the data and the companies involved, one of the things we found is that they tended to have larger dedicated staffs who can focus on energy efficiency. But also we found that a lot of them were big consumer-facing companies that are under considerable pressure in the market from investors and other stakeholders to show progress on sustainability. And so, it was almost a natural fit for them to be in the program and work with us towards their goals. The other thing that we found that was really interesting was that a lot of our goal achievers met the goal in less than 10 years. What we found was that if you look at the bottom chart right here, it says years to reach the goal. Number 2 would be 2 years in the program, 3 would be 3 years in the program, and so forth. And we actually had 4 goal achievers that met it within the first 2 years of being in the program. At the other end of the spectrum, we had 2 goal achievers that took the full 10 years and maybe a little bit extra to meet the goal. But by far, the largest number met it within year 5. And the average in terms of the number of years to achieve the goal was about 5 3/4 of a year. The other thing that was interesting about this is that a lot of partners are eligible to repledge. And I don't know if this was clear to folks when they first joined the program, but you can repledge and then you'll get another 10 years to reach a similarly ambitious goal. The other thing that's interesting is that we also offer flexibility on the goal after you reach the first program goal of 25%. So it's definitely an engaging program that you can work with us throughout the period that you'd want to do so. Then I'll move into some of the sectors that we saw that produced a lot of goal achievers. And the 2 biggest sectors were electronic equipment and transportation equipment. I should mention that these 2 sectors are also pretty heavily represented in the program. I think transportation equipment is the largest with about 40 partners out of the current 260. So it's almost natural that we would expect a lot of goal achievers to come from these organizations. The other thing that was interesting about the different sectors is that the paper products industry is one of the energy intensive sectors in US manufacturing, and it actually produced 6 goal achievers. So it sounds like that particular sector really put priority towards energy efficiency, and was able to achieve some pretty good results. So this right here kind of gives you a snapshot that it's pretty well distributed, although certain sectors had higher numbers of goal achievers than others. One thing that was interesting is that some other energy intensive sectors like food processing and even chemicals were able to have some goal achievers. The other thing we looked at geographically is to see where the goal achievers came from. And so what we looked at were the number of states that had the highest number of plants belonging to the goal achievers. So let me make sure I'm explaining this correctly. If I look at the goal achievers and they have, let's say, 100 plants, if 20 of them are located in Texas and the rest are pretty well spread out, that would indicate why Texas is in blue, because it has a higher proportion of that partner's plants in that state. And so we had 6 states basically that had the highest number of goal achievers plants: Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee, Louisiana, and Texas. And the interesting thing to me about this slide is that a number of years ago, there were some stakeholders who claimed that the southeastern United States was the Gobi Desert of energy efficiency because they didn't have a lot of energy codes at that time. And here we have 2 states in that sector, in that region, that had some of the highest numbers of plants belonging to goal achievers. So to me, that really blows that Gobi Desert comment out of the water. Then we started looking at some of the resources that were leveraged by the goal achievers. And by far, the biggest and most important resource in the program that facilitated the partners' ability to meet their goal was the technical account managers. The technical account managers are very talented, very smart people, and they were able to help partners establish energy baselines. They were able to help them understand where the energy was coming from and going into their plants. In some cases, this was very new information to some of the partners. But the biggest issue or the biggest takeaway is that they were able to help the partners focus on where to achieve the biggest energy savings, whether it was a very energy intensive plant or a plant that just had more energy savings opportunities. They were able to give that second set of eyes, of unbiased viewpoint, to help understand where to find the biggest energy savings. They also assisted the partners in using the DOE software tools. We have a nice suite of software tools under the Measure tool suite that you can use to do everything from investment grade energy assessment on any industrial system, or if you only have a couple of data points, you can still use the calculators in those tools and get value from them. The other thing we rolled out several years ago was a diagnostic instrument loan program, whereby partners could borrow a diagnostic tool like an amp meter or flow meter or combustion analyzer for free from the program, and we'd even ship the tool to them for free. And the TAMs, a lot of them are graduates of the Industrial Assessment Center, so they know how to use these tools, and they're able to help the partners use the tools and interpret the results. The TAMs were also very helpful in getting Industrial Assessment Center audits for some of their partners, as well as working with the Combined Heat and Power Technical Assistance Partnerships people to help provide technical assistance in cogeneration, waste heat recovery, and that sort of thing. And so right here, we have a couple examples of the diagnostic tools, the partners at the implant trainings, but also of the baselining and modeling capability that the TAMs were able to offer. In one case, we had a TAM who was able to forecast the energy consumption from a large retrofit at partner's plant, and it turned out to be right on line with the energy bills that partner received 1 year after completing the big retrofit project. Next, we looked at the specific types of resources offered by the programs that were leveraged. And one of the things we found was that the implant trainings were a pretty highly coveted resource. These are basically 3 to 4 day trainings that are hosted at the partner site, in which we bring in a subject matter expert to perform the training, both classroom and field training, on a specific industrial system. And so between 2011 and 2019, a total of 140 of these implant trainings were awarded, and about 38% of them went to companies that were eventual goal achievers. The nice thing about these implant trainings is that in addition to training the personnel, they also help you uncover energy savings opportunities in the plant, everything from the low-hanging fruit to more sophisticated projects that would require capital expenditures. We had a lot of goal achievers that were just awarded 1 implant, but we also had some that were awarded 2 implant trainings at different sites. And the ones that had more than 1 implant training at their sites, they were the ones usually that were able to meet the goal a little quicker in that earlier slide that I talked about. And then, of course, the TAMs come to these implant trainings and support them with diagnostic tools, best practices, and such tips. This kind of gives you an idea of the tools that we offer. The Measure tool suite is manufacturing energy assessment for utility reduction, and it includes all the systems that you see here on the right-hand side. These tools are the ones that were also leveraged by the partners. Going back to the old days when we first leveraged these or rolled these out in the 1990s, we actually had a system of qualified specialists or professional auditors who were trained on these tools and who had to take rigorous exams to be considered qualified specialists. And so they were the ones who would go into the plants back in the old Save Energy Now days. And even today, they form a lot of the subject matter experts who come to your plant to perform the implant training. And so they can show you how to use these tools, and they actually use them themselves to generate the assessment reports that went back to the partners. Some of the other resources within the Advanced Manufacturing Office that were leveraged included the Industrial Assessment Centers and the CHP Technical Assistance Partnerships. Of the 56 goal achievers, at least 32 received 1 IEC audit during the period where they reached the goal. We had some others that received more than 1 audit, but the nice thing about these audits is that if you have similar plants, the energy savings measures can be shared across the enterprise. And that's one of the things we also saw during this research. In terms of the CHP TAPs, there weren't quite as many companies that leveraged their assistance, but when they did get assistance from a CHP TAPs, it was very impactful and helped them fulfill a multi-million-dollar project very successfully, including a 14.1 megawatt CHP system at a plant in South Carolina. The other AMO resource that was pretty instrumental for a lot of the goal achievers were the energy management resources or programs related to the ICE 50001 energy management standard. The Superior Energy Performance Program had rolled out back in 2012 or so, and there were a number of partners, including 9, that started working within that program and using it towards the Better Plants goal. Each one of the 9 SEP certified or partners that met the goal had at least 1 SEP certified plant, and in some cases they had 3 or 4. And these the certification and the energy management system that these companies created really helped propel them to reaching the goal. More recently, we launched the 50,001 Ready program, which gives you about 90% of everything you would need to have an ISO 50001 conformant energy management system. And we had 3 goal achievers that had at least one 50,001 Ready attested plant. So it kind of shows you that energy management can be a big part of reaching an ambitious goal. Some of the common practices or achievements that came out of these kind of SEP and 50,001 certified plants included getting senior management support, which is often one of the biggest hurdles that we found for reaching any kind of goal, let alone the Better Plants goal. But also having strong energy baselines that are normalized to production. This is something that happens every time that you finish the 50,001 Ready or you certify to SEP. And then using the right performance indicators for all the major energy using systems. A lot of these companies also had to establish action plans and objectives that they would reach, so kind of interim goals towards a major goal like 25%. And then the other thing that was really important is that a lot of these companies had to establish what we call operational controls or procedures to create continuous improvement in energy performance. So this would be an ensemble of tasks, lists, personnel assignments, tools even that create alarms that can let you understand when your energy consumption is going beyond a desired level. So for example, if you have compressed air leaks that suddenly go above a certain leak load, having the operational controls to understand how to look for these leaks and fix them in real time can help you keep them from getting very high and wasting a lot of compressed air. So these were some of the benefits that partners who had worked with us on our energy management programs were able to derive. The other thing we looked at was the types of projects that these partners implemented. And they basically fell into 3 buckets. The first bucket was either one or just a small, big capital intensive projects. And in this bucket, we had 9 partners. In this case, CHP systems was the most common of the capital intensive projects, but we also had some partners that did major system or plant retrofits. And usually they were able to meet the goal in a very short time period, usually under 4 years. The biggest category was what we call the combination of small, medium, and large capital projects. And so we had 38 partners that were in this type of bucket. And I should mention, the capital intensive projects were all at least $1 million in cost to implement. So you can go down from there to understand what we consider small to medium. And so this would include everything from adding variable frequency drives to certain motor driven systems, upgrading your HVAC and chiller controls, also adding compressed air storage with a pressure flow controller, for example. These were examples of what we would call the small to medium large capital projects. Usually they had paybacks of within 2 to 3 years. I should mention that the big capital intensive projects, some of them had longer paybacks, but because the savings were so significant, they were able to meet the goal in a very short time. And then we had the third category of what we call small or low cost and medium sized projects. And there were 8 partners that met the goal through just these types of activities. And these would be what you call the low hanging fruit, turning things off that were left on after the end of a shift, set point verification, fixing leaks, steam traps, cleaning the heat exchange plates on a boiler. These kinds of projects were actually very impactful for a number of our partners. And it kind of showed that you don't really need to spend millions and millions of dollars to reach the ambitious Better Plants goal. Then we also started looking at some of the characteristics of the goal achievers. And for most of them, we found that there were 5 that they had in common. And so the first one was getting management support and funding. And sometimes this involved working first on some low-hanging fruit, easy, quick wins to get that kind of buy-in and credibility that would allow the senior management to want to get more interested in supporting and getting behind the energy management team. We also found that the data-driven approach was one of the keys for the Better Plants goal achievers. Everything from understanding what your energy data is to using it to make decisions, uncovering anomalies in historians and that kind of thing, getting the audits to understand what the possibilities are, and then also using different pieces of equipment like submeters or some of the diagnostic tools that gave them accurate data about how their equipment performed in the field. Another thing that we found is that a lot of our Goal Achiever partners engaged colleagues from other departments and other business units. This was something that was a little bit of a revelation, although not too much of a surprise. What we found is that some of the Goal Achievers, you have a main point of contact like a corporate energy manager, and that person realizes that they're not going to be able to do it on their own. So they would engage colleagues from, say, engineering, operations, maintenance, EHS, and so forth, and really put together a full court press, to be able to reach the goal. The other thing that a lot of companies did was they communicated their success. They took credit for the success. This was both internal through like corporate bulletin boards, but also externally through the Better Plants program with our case studies, our social media activities, and so forth. Also presentations at conferences. And so this was a great way to not only communicate what they were getting, but also explain to others how they were able to fulfill certain projects. And then lastly, we saw that there was a willingness on a lot of the Goal Achievers' part to leverage the tools and guidance that were offered by the DOE. There were a couple of partners that were able to get there without it, but by far most of them, they either consulted with their TAM, or they got implant trainings, or they received guidance and support in other ways from the IECs, CHP TAPs, and so forth. So these were 5 of the most common characteristics that we saw of the Goal Achievers. Beyond this, we actually saw some other success factors for a lot of the Goal Achievers. I already mentioned management support and funding and data analysis. We also saw that the identification of energy efficiency measures was something that a lot of companies did. They didn't simply try to fix something or save energy based on hearsay stories. They actually did an assessment themselves or got an external assessment and then reviewed their energy using systems to understand where they could save energy. A lot of them also set action plans. Sometimes having that kind of list in front of you, that to-do list, really helped a lot of companies get going and really fulfill on their implementation of energy efficiency. Engaging the other departments, I also mentioned that up front, but communicating success and training employees. This was a big one that we found, especially for companies like TE Connectivity that wanted to engage their employees. They had a lot of people who were, say, Six Sigma certified, but they didn't necessarily know about energy efficiency. So getting some of our treasure hunts and other implant trainings, as well as leveraging external training opportunities like the Compressed Air Challenge, Level 1 and Level 2 trainings, the certified practitioners in energy management systems, and the CEM through AE and other AE courses. Those were also very helpful in getting employees trained. The other thing that was an interesting factor of success, and this only happened with 1 or 2 of our Goal Achievers, was to integrate energy efficiency into the procurement activities of the organization. And so in the case of, for example, Volvo Trucks, they had an energy manager at one of their sites who was able to review all of the suggested or upcoming purchases that were going to be made. And if they found a piece of equipment that would increase or make their energy intensity worse, he could flag it for the plant manager before a final decision was made on whether to purchase that type of equipment. So that was another interesting thing that helps to maintain that continuous improvement towards energy efficiency. So then what we did is we wanted to look at the different activities and how they could translate into other, for other organizations, basically. And so there were a couple steps that we found that were kind of important. The first one, it's probably not much of a surprise, but doing an energy review of your plant's energy consumption patterns. This includes everything from acquiring and tracking data, to looking at the actual energy using systems. So the plant energy profiler tool that the DOE uses, also known as a PEPEX tool, is a very good one for that. And this is some of the results that we displayed from that tool. But also understanding your energy flows, using the DOE energy footprint tool and the Sankey diagram tool. These are also very good at helping people understand where to look for different opportunities. And then identifying and prioritizing energy savings opportunities. This is probably something that's not always very well stated, but when you look at different energy savings opportunities, the payback periods, if there's any incentives associated with those kinds of projects, these are the kinds of things that help you prioritize, how to save energy, basically. and also looking at the magnitude of the energy savings. If you've got a 50 horsepower pump versus a 200,000 pound per hour boiler, it's pretty clear that the boiler is going to give you a bigger bang for the buck, even if the project is more expensive. So the other kind of concrete steps that we found that a lot of companies could take would be to get accurate estimates of their energy savings. And this is particularly important when they would go before senior management or a financial professional within the organization and wanted to get funding for a project. If they didn't have good defensible energy savings estimates, a lot of times they wouldn't really get the funding. But if you can provide real defensible estimates, that's going to be a big help to you. And then also implementing best practices. This is something we saw with a lot of the ISO 5001 certified plants. These were things that helped them really get to the goal. And also we put together a diagram that we may have displayed in one of our previous webinars here on the different energy using systems that are common in manufacturing plants that shows a typical amount or proportion of energy they consume, as well as the potential savings opportunities from each one. So we have an additional appendix in the white paper that gives you even more detailed savings ranges for different types of equipments and different types of projects on industrial systems. So the key takeaways from the research, there's no one-size-fits-all approach to manufacturing. Most manufacturing plants are unique, even in cases where you find manufacturing plants that belong to the same company that make the same thing. One of them may have been built in 1950, the other might have been built in 1980. And so the process technologies are different. The amount of energy that's needed from the cross-cutting systems is going to be different. So you really need to take a unique approach and assess each of your manufacturing plants separately. Also, large capital projects are not necessary to save large amounts of energy. And this is something that may be a little counterintuitive to some folks. But when you look at the vintageness of some of the manufacturing plants, you can start to see why certain very operational types of activities can lead to some quick wins with big energy savings in them. And so that's one of the things that really helped a lot of our partners. The other thing that we found is that when partners undertook energy savings activities, the ones that really applied a system level approach ended up with much better energy savings and more impactful projects than if they simply replaced a motor or a pump or something like that. If they really looked at energy being used all the way at the points of use and then back to the input of energy or the input of the materials like air for a compressed air system, that type of approach really led to the types of projects that were the most impactful and that yielded the best energy savings. And then the other thing we noticed is that peer-based knowledge sharing is highly beneficial. We had a period of about 1.5 years where we worked with our water and wastewater treatment partners to share best practices. And those were pretty valuable for those partners. And we've seen that in other instances, let's say the Summit or AE World and other conferences and other networking opportunities that we offer, like at the Technology Day, for example. So definitely learn from your peers. That's one of the biggest takeaways that we have there. I've got a few testimonials from some of the Goal Achiever partners, and I'll let you all read the testimonials themselves. But the things that really jumped out to us about a lot of these testimonials was how helpful the TAMs were. Everything from helping them with their baselines to introducing them to other partners that they can share or learn from. These were some key activities that TAMs were able to do. Also, communicating the opportunities for DOE assistance. There are so many different resources that are available, not only through AMO, but across all the DOE, that the TAMs are really the ones that can help you identify what's going to make the biggest gain for you, and really put you in contact with the people who work in those programs that can help you with them. A couple other things we saw from our partners is that they came in and said, yeah, we had a lot of staff, but not everyone knew about energy efficiency and sustainability. So this is where the treasure hunts and the implant trainings, the educational resources that we've developed, everything from the tip cards, case studies, and source books, can really help improve the competence of the employees at manufacturing plants. And also the work that the TAMs do to help them track energy consumption. One of the things we say about our regression-based ENPI tool is that it can help you do a baseline. But one of the things we don't always say very much is that it can help you track your energy consumption and your energy savings. So if you can run the regression every month and you've done projects in that month, it'll kind of give you an idea of how you did. And that's one of the things that the TAMs were able to help in the case of 3M. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. And I've put up this link to the Better Buildings Resource Library, or the Better Plants Resource Library. That's where the report is going to be cited. And then this will be available to you after the webinar. But I'd like to take a few minutes and open it up to questions.
Please submit your questions in the chat box and we'll take them as they come in. Well, Bruce, one question I'll ask as we wait for some questions to come in is, sorry, were there any surprises that you found when reviewing this data of 70 plus goal achievers or talking to partners? Any interesting reflections that partners had that you might not have thought was so important toward them to them on their journey, or what they really emphasized as so significant?
Surprises, I'd say one of the biggest surprises was the time to meet the goal. I think when the program was being designed back in the mid 2000s, it was the idea that if we put out the 25% goal, a lot of our partners are going to need 10 years just to get there. And what we found was that, especially in the first couple of years, there were some partners that had really big gains, 6-7% each year for the first 2 or 3 years. And then it kind of went down a little bit from there. But the ones that really stuck to it were able to reach the goal in, like I said, 5 to 6 years. The average was 5 3/4. And we expected it to be closer to 9 years, for example. So I'd say that was one of the biggest surprises there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Please use the chat box if you have any questions, and let us know if there's anything you'd like to know further from what Bruce was presenting today. So how much from your how much do you think a document like this, or the ability to see how other companies did this, might encourage a company? I hear all the time that companies are hesitant to set a long-term goal because they don't necessarily, they don't want to commit to something if they don't have planned out what their steps are going to be in year 5 or year 7. How much do you think seeing the success of other companies and the successful strategies, can hopefully catalyze, more companies to set corporate goals and to really work towards those progress?
Well, I hope it'll, give us some encouragement and inspiration towards rethinking about it and fulfilling it. My impression is that, like I said, there is a little bit of a tendency for people to think that, a certain amount of energy savings or a certain improvement in energy intensity equates to a dollar amount. And one of the things we found is that that's not necessarily the case. Yeah, you can definitely spend millions of dollars and put in a CHP system, and you'll get a big boost in terms of your energy performance. But if you also train your employees and let them figure out how to find opportunities and take ownership of those opportunities and then recognize those employees, you can get a very good return on your investment without spending a lot of money. And you'll have trained employees who are also more motivated employees. So it all depends on what the organization wants to do, the corporate culture of the organization, and if the management is engaged. And if the management gets engaged, that can also provide a big boost towards it. So it's one of those things where 10 years is a long time, and you may not be able to get everything done in the first couple of years, but it's like a marathon rather than a sprint. Keep your eye on the prize, keep your eye on the finish line, and eventually you'll get there. In most cases, in less time than the 10-year period.
Absolutely. Bruce, another question we got that I think is pretty interesting in light of better buildings and better plants moving towards talking about decarbonization and greenhouse gas reduction. Sorry. Do you see any companies starting to prioritize projects based on greenhouse gas reduction, such as dollars per greenhouse gas removed, or other ideas to justify investments other than just in energy cost savings?
Yeah, I think, from the research that we did for this particular paper, I didn't see anything specifically like that. We did notice that a lot of our partners are also kind of, students at the front of the class, so to speak. And so, they're all about manufacturing excellence in all areas, whether it's productivity, quality, maintenance, safety, and even sustainability. So we did see that there were some companies that would take advantage of the ENPI tool, for example, to estimate reductions in greenhouse gases. We also had a number of partners that are reporting the CDP, for example. So they were able to leverage resources like the science-based target document that we put out last year. So I think there wasn't anything specific in this research, but we could tell that a lot of the partners, they had their eye on reductions in carbon intensity as well as energy.
Great. Sorry, a new question that came in. Sorry. We focus on manufacturers with 500 or fewer employees worldwide. Few use the energy required to participate in the program or the IACs. How can these companies take advantage of the training or expertise? I have some thoughts, but I'll let you go first, Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, our view has been and always is that, as long as a company is a manufacturer within the United States and they can fall into the 3-digit NAICS codes for manufacturing, they're eligible to be in the program. Now, if they really have small energy bills, like say less than $100,000 a year, they're probably not going to get as much out of it as a large manufacturer. But that's really, to have that kind of an energy bill in a year, that's really light assembly. It's almost like a warehouse, type of company. So our view is that, even if they're considered small, they can still get a lot of value from joining a program like this and leveraging the resources that it offers.
Yeah, I completely echo what Bruce is saying. And, David, if you're interested, one of the earliest webinars that we had for this, and one of the resources we put out was a guide to saving energy for small to medium-sized manufacturers. And we hope that a lot of the best practices that we're teaching and a lot of the guidance documents or training videos that we put on can be used for everyone, regardless of shapes or sizes. And even if your organization might be too small to necessarily have an ISC assessment, there's still the ability for that program to look through the database and find other organizations like yours and see what the most commonly recommended energy saving strategies are, and that might be a way to see and cross-reference if that applies to your facility as well. And certainly, David, if you're just looking for someone to talk to or want to bounce ideas off of, we'd be happy to lend our experts and see if just having an introductory phone call can try to figure out what DOE resources are right for you. Bruce, one last question that I see here, about the Better Climate Challenge. You had referenced at the beginning of the presentation that existing Better Plants partners can transition to the Better Climate Challenge. Does that mean that they are not Better Plants partners anymore and only Better Climate Challenge partners, or will they still be partners in both programs?
My view is that we treat it kind of like the old healthcare proposal. If you like your doctor, you keep your doctor. Like your program, you can keep your program. So if somebody is a company that's already in Better Plants, they can join the Better Climate Challenge just like they do the Water Efficiency Network or the upcoming waste reduction initiative, and they'll still be Better Plants partners. And by the same token, if a company is new to Better Plants and they join the Better Climate Challenge, they will functionally be a Better Plants partner because they'll need a technical account manager. They'll have access to all the trainings and tools that we offer. So I don't think there's anything, you're not leaving the Better Plants program just by joining the Better Climate Challenge.
Yeah, I think we look at all of these efforts around water and waste and carbon reduction in the supply chain as areas where we can augment your participation and your ability to leverage DOE resources, not something where you'd have to choose between one or the other. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll give one more minute to see if any other questions come in, but I wanted to thank everyone who joined us today, who's joined us all month. I hope everyone has had a very enriching energy awareness month of October. I look forward to whatever new holidays we get to celebrate in November. Yeah, this has really been great to see so many of you participating day after day, week after week through these webinars. And I wanted to thank Bruce for his thought leadership and hard work in putting this document together, and then taking his time to present us today. Bruce, I'll give you the floor for any last words, and then we can call it a day.
Sure. I would just like to thank everyone for their time for joining today. And I know we have the word questions on the slide right now, but I also would encourage them to provide comments. And if they have any ideas or suggestions for future research, we would be interested in hearing about that as well.
Thanks so much, everyone.